From Mountain Home to Raft River, we've got all the District 4 analysis you'll need to know. This is the Magic Valley Prepcast with Scott Burton.
That's right. Better late than never here on the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. Your District 4 stop down each and every week here in the great state of Idaho. The Magic Valley Prepcast is brought to you by Ideal, Idaho's college savings program. This is a 529 account that you can set up for your future student. It can be used for college, both 4-year and 2-year, trade schools. It can even be used for things outside of school, like just rolling it into another tax account. So a lot of good options. You can go to Ideal Idaho College Savings Program's website at idsaves.org. Again, that's idsaves.org. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring in our guest, our esteemed panelist here on the Magic Valley Prepcast. It is Scott Burton. Yo, what's up, Scotty?
Oh, man. Hey, doing well, Brandon. Just we're running a little late. I know that we said we're going to go 3:30 on Friday, but, there is a big ish at the end of that. And I rolled in from Pocatello just a second ago just because I had to go to I had a gymnastics competition. So, I didn't personally, participate. There's a time in your life where you get older and you just don't put your butt above your head. It's just not good things happen. My daughter had a competition and she was just getting into gymnastics. And so her second competition and took third overall, took first on floor. I mean, she's killing it and it's only in her second competition ever. So we're excited, but I'm not a cheer dad.
That's awesome.
No.
And hence the moniker on your name tag. So for those of you that are watching this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account, Scott always puts a funny little quip or something related to his personal situation at the moment we're recording. Today it's uneven bars.
That could explain a lot of my mental state as well.
Yeah, I thought it might be a metaphor for what you're trying to do here, straddling so many lines. But okay, so real quick, just to talk about gymnastics, because I was thinking about this lately. Gymnastics used to be huge in like the 70s and 80s. I lived in Nebraska for a short time, and actually one of my friends' dads graduated from a high school in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he was actually coming back. His team in high school had won the state championship in men's gymnastics, and they were being honored at the high school in Lincoln. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. And then I looked back and I saw Idaho used to have state sanctioned gymnastics competitions. When you were growing up, Scott, was gymnastics still kind of, or was it kind of on the way out?
Well, we didn't really have a whole lot of my friends and people that I knew that did it. I grew up when Mary Lou Retton won back in the day, which was a Wednesday. And she, so back Nadia Comaneci, those kind of people, the old school. But growing up, we never did much of it. Closest thing we got to gymnastics was, jumping our bikes off of ramps and flipping circles as we crashed down to the ground. And that was it. But not a whole lot of participation, huh?
Interesting. Okay. I was just wondering when like states stopped having like state gymnastics competitions. But I don't know.
It's a good question. I have no idea.
One of those things we'll have to answer another time because we've got several topics to get to. It's like this person was peeking ahead in our rundown. Scott, here is N1K3 in the house on YouTube. How about them Tigers? The Moho girls basketball team beating Jerome in overtime. We are going to get to that momentarily here on the show, I promise, because that was an epic battle in girls hoops earlier this week. 1-point win in overtime for Moho. And I didn't even think about it until now. That is a Tigers versus Tigers match. Who are we? The Tigers. Who are we going to beat? The Tigers.
Yeah, exactly. Try being on the PA of that going Tiger foul on, no, Mountain Home foul on number, it's like, God, I couldn't say Tigers, but it was fun and we'll get to that.
Yes. We are going to start though with a really fun boys basketball game that happened recently in the Magic Valley. Two teams that aren't getting a ton of acclaim this year. Shoshone and Richfield met up in a non-conference battle. These are two teams that are in the middle of the pack in terms of kind of standings in their respective leagues. In fact, when these two teams met up, Shoshone was 3-9, Richfield was 3-10. But man, sometimes it doesn't matter what the records are. You get a really good game. And so, Scott, here's how this goes. A 38-34 lead for Richfield as the fourth quarter begins. But Shoshone is kind of hanging in. They're clawing back into it. Let's go to the final minute of the game. It's 51-49. Richfield's got a 2-point lead. And all of a sudden, Shoshone's Bud Cortez, he quarterbacked the football team this fall, steals a pass and takes it the distance. We're tied 51-51, 43 seconds to go. Now, you might think, okay, Richfield's a little shaken up. How are they going to respond? Well, all they do is get a 3 from Garrett Huffman with 19 seconds to go. So now Richfield is ahead 54-53. And so there's a possession for Shoshone. They turn the ball over, though, 7.7 seconds to go. So now Shoshone's got a foul. Scott, this is a classic situation. You had an opportunity to take the lead or perhaps tie the game, 7 seconds to go, but you turn the ball over. Now you've got to go for the quick steal and then the foul. They go for the foul. Ian Lopez goes to the free throw line for Richfield, misses both free throws. Now this is critical because the second free throw is missed. Shoshone's got to get the ball and get their butts up the floor, right? Because the clock starts and there's only 7 seconds left at this point. So
right, and they have no timeouts.
Yes, no timeouts remaining for Shoshone. What do? They throw a pass down the floor. Luckily for Shoshone, not luckily for Richfield, a Richfield defender tips the ball out of bounds, stopping the clock with 0.8 of a second to go. It was out of bounds off of the Richfield player, and because it occurred in the front court for Shoshone, Shoshone gets to inbound on the sideline right by their basket. So they're, 0.8 of a second. You can put up a shot. You can't take a ton of time. You got to pretty much catch and shoot it, but right. You've got a shot. And so the veteran coach for Shoshone, Gar Ward, what kind of play does he draw up? I'm not sure what the primary option was, but the primary option quickly became Juarez, who catches it at the free throw line, Kevin Juarez, and nobody comes out to cover him. There were two defenders right there. Nobody came out. Juarez flicks it quickly, sinks it as time expires. Shoshone wins 55-54. Incredible shot for Kevin Juarez and a big comeback win for the Indians.
Oh, yeah, that is huge. It's one of those games to where when the season hasn't gone like it's supposed to have gone for you, those are the things that just help sweeten the pot a little bit because you need those. And, and good for Shoshone. And it probably does a lot of, for the confidence of Shoshone. And then, you talk about Gar Ward having coached at Richfield. You can't tell me that game didn't mean a little something to him. But it's always fun, to get into those situations as a coach. For a lot of years, I've been on both sides of that, to where we have blown a lead or we have stolen one away. And those games, man, you keep them in perspective. They're so much fun.
Yeah. So Juarez, the game-winning jumper, and it was one of those shots too, Scott, kind of like a Hollywood movie where it bounced off the back of the rim and bounced off the side of the rim and hung up there for a second and then dropped in. So that was pretty epic. So,
yeah, good for them. Good for them.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so congratulations to Shoshone. The Indians, maybe this is a win that can propel them forward a little bit. We will see here on the back half of the schedule. The Indians are 6-10 on the season now. So, and 4-8 in their conference. So that's pretty good there. Okay, let's shift now to girls basketball. 2 games we wanted to highlight here over the past week of action. We're going to start with the smaller schools, and then we'll work our way up to that Jerome Moho battle. So Dietrich and Carey, a rivalry as old as time, briefly interrupted for a 2-year stretch where
Mhm.
Carey actually moved up a classification level, but the Panthers had dropped back down. We saw them battle for the state championship in football. You got a friend there, Scott. That's your cat.
Yep. How you doing? Hey, Luna. Oh, Remedy.
It's been a while since we've seen Luna on the show.
I know. And Luna recognizes that. It's
Yes.
really trying to steal the camera. All right.
Carey and Dietrich, they played for the state championship in football. They've already had a couple of epic boys basketball battles, and in girls basketball, much of the same. Now, these teams met for the first time right after the new year, January 7th in Dietrich. Carey goes to Dietrich and gets out of there with a 4-point win, 46-42. Well, we had the rematch last Thursday, and this time Dietrich goes to Carey's house and wins 36-33. This was a big victory for first-year head coach Charlie Bingham and the Blue Devils.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a huge win. And you talk to Coach Bingham about, the game and kind of what it meant and everything that surrounded it. This was a huge game because the win evened them up in the conference standings. And it's also coming through in the middle of a 5-game winning streak. They're trying to peak at the right time, play their best basketball coming down the stretch. And a win like this can really help you believe that that's what you're doing. And, this is a team that knew that they could play with Carey, in their matchup at home, because the one that the game we're talking about that they won was at Carey. And the game that they lost was at home. And in that game, they had a lead and then they lost a lead. And then they trailed, then they led. I mean, so they knew they could play with them. And so that confidence just kind of came out of that locker room when they played Carey. And they started hot. 17 points right out of the gate, first quarter points. And then Carey slowed them down just a little bit, where Dietrich only scored 19 points the rest of the way. But they were up by 10 at half. And, it was just one of those wins that they got up quickly and they held on.
Yep. This was a big breakthrough win. We have several highlights here. Coach Bingham took the time to clip these highlights from the footage of the game and then send them to us, Scott, which was awesome. We really appreciate that. And so let's go through these. I've organized them in chronological order as they occurred throughout the game. Up first, and again, the two names you hear a lot with this Dietrich team, well, there's three kind of primary names. There's Paige Van Tassel, Aaliyah Robertson, Caitlin Wanamaker. They're all going to be featured heavily in these highlights. First up, Scott, we have a 3 courtesy of Paige Van Tassel. Looks
Can't
good.
leave her open. Don't leave her open.
Just stepped into it and let it rip. And honestly, Scott, I think what surprised me most in that clip was we were at the 4:45 mark of the opening quarter, and Carey hadn't scored yet. And with that 3 by Van Tassel, they were down 10-0 out of the gates. Right. That's tough to overcome. Yeah,
it is. And that was one of those things that I think Dietrich knew. They had to start hot. They had to come out firing. And, no matter how good a team is, digging yourself a hole that Carey did, I mean, that's tough to come out of against a really good Dietrich team.
Yeah. Up next, Scott, is another 3-ball, this time from Aaliyah Robertson. And again, at that point, they are still leading by double digits. At that point, 20-8. Pretty remarkable there.
Well, and I'm watching Richfield not guard the 3-point line very well. They're launching, they're falling, they're off to a hot start. Get out there and mix things up, defensively. And maybe it was just one of those games for Richfield that they just couldn't get it going either. But you talk about Van Tassel and Robertson and Wanamaker, all those seniors. Those are girls that are coming back to this Dietrich team with a ton of experience. And it's great to have that kind of leadership. I mean, they have played in the last 2 state championship games, and they're trying to get back there for a third, and with that kind of leadership, that kind of experience, those big moments, you've been there already. And I think that could pay dividends down the road for Dietrich.
Yep. Here is another three from, once again, Aaliyah Robertson. This one in the second half of that. And that one just off the dribble. She was on the wing, dribbled up top, stepped into it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those nights, man, that they were hitting. And, you watch that clip there, Richfield playing a little bit better defense on the perimeter, but a couple of screens they didn't get through, and that opened up, the shot at the top of the key. But again, Dietrich's a good team. They can beat you a lot of different ways.
Yep. And then, Scott, the defense obviously very apparent. Carey was still in the teens in that third quarter clip we showed you. 2 plays down the stretch that really seal it. The first one's going to be a block inside, and then we'll talk about the final play of the game. But here is in the fourth quarter, Carey's trying to mount a comeback. They get denied inside.
Good help defense, good rotation. Everything there, textbook as far as defensively for Dietrich, and they've got enough size and good wingspan that they're going to make passing a little bit difficult, especially down low and in the interior passing. So again, that's a really good Dietrich team, and it's also a team that plays up a lot too. They've played Gooding and Butte County and West Jeff and Raptor Valley. I mean, they play good teams, and that is going to be something down the stretch of a season that will pay off. Because you look at this Dietrich team, and they're like 10-7. Well, they're a lot better than 10-7 when you look at who they played. So don't get misled by all of that.
Yep. And then you mentioned it, making life difficult in the passing lane, Scott. Carey's got the ball down 3. They've come all the way back. They're down 36-33. There's less than 3 seconds to go, but Carey's got the ball. One last chance here, except Dietrich denies them. Right there, a clean steal and a takeaway, and Dietrich runs out the clock.
Wow, how dangerous was that play? Man, it looked clean, but if an official sees something else, man, that's a tough shot. You got 2 people in your face, don't want to bail her out, and boy, that could have been trouble, but they got away with it. It was a good play.
Yep. So Dietrich gets the win, 36-33. They split the season series, Scott. And now we talk about, okay, the regular season is over for the most part in girls basketball. It is over for this conference, the 1A Sawtooth Conference. In the district tournament, who wins the tiebreaker? Carey does. Carey gets the number 1 seed. Dietrich gets the number 2 seed, even though they both went with 1 loss in league play. They both beat each other. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it's because Carey won by 4 and Dietrich won by 3. Carey gets the nod there. That's razor thin. Literally can't get any closer than that. But now they get ready for a district tournament where, Richfield is the 3 seed, and they're still kind of lurking somewhat, but this is really Carey and Dietrich. And the good news here, Scott, is that there is 1.5 bids available to state this year from this district. We talked about last year where Dietrich and Richfield were both top 5 teams. Only one got to go. Well, now there's a little bit of a parachute for whoever doesn't win between Dietrich and Carey potentially, where, you got to go earn it with a play-in game, but you've got the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's really all you want. You just have to find a way to get there. Matters not if you come in the side door or you kick in the front door. Just get there, and that extra half berth, man, is huge. So, and it's going to make sure that, some of the best teams get to state. We see this so much in the berths in conferences to state. And, we talk a lot about on the boys side with the Century, Pokey, and Preston, where people are getting left home out of that conference, and they very well could win the whole stinking thing if they got to state, So at some point, you just got to get the best teams there somehow. But I'm glad that both of these two teams will have a shot to get there.
Yep. Looking forward to that potential battle at districts, and then seeing whoever advances. Whoever takes second place from this district would have to play the second place team from District 3. And that's probably going to be Salmon River or Tri-Valley. Salmon River got to state last year, so it's not going to be easy, but they've got a shot to earn their way to state. So speaking of bids available to state and things like that, Scott, the 5A Great Basin Conference, I'm still getting used to saying that, the 5A Great Basin Conference in girls basketball, they get 2 bids to state this year. Actually 1.5, because the numbers in the conference dropped overall, right? Wood River moved down, Canyon Ridge moved up. So now
I think we're still getting 2 out of this. Let me see here. But
I think your second place team has to play the third place team from District 3.
Oh, I think you might be right.
Yep. That's what I see.
Okay.
But
Yep.
Long story short, I think there's going to be 2 teams from this conference at state. And we talked about it. Mountain Home has come in as the heavy favorite. The question was, okay, who's going to have a shot to join them? Is it going to be Jerome, a team that got to state last year for the first time in a long time? Or is it going to be like a Burley or a Twin and Mountain Home had been so dominant in lapping the field until this matchup earlier this week in Jerome. What do you call your home gym? The Tiger Den? What do you call it?
The Jungle.
The Jungle. I love it.
Yeah. It's like we do. So I'm on the mic all the time. I do all the PA stuff when I should be actually controlling the environment. I do that too, but I do the PA stuff, and it's the same thing. It's like, good evening, welcome to the Jungle on the campus of Jerome High School. Da 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 da. And then when the band isn't there, and I have to do lineups and play some music, I've got a really cool welcome to the Jungle instrumental, and it just kicks in and is a and everybody's like, yeah. So it's pretty cool. So it feeds that jungle, that jungle mantra, I guess, that we're trying to create.
That's awesome. So when Jerome played Mountain Home earlier this year in Moho, Mountain Home won by 40 points, 73-33. And so if you could just narrow the gap a little, okay, hey, that's a win for this program. Well, narrowed the gap and then some. The game goes to overtime. Mountain Home escapes with a 49-48 win in OT. Let's start with the Jerome side of it. You are the athletic director at Jerome. Very rarely are we just constantly talking about Jerome and hyping them up, but that's got to make you, and I'm sure Coach Kelly Williams, feel pretty good about, hey, we just hung toe-to-toe, had a chance to win and defeat the best team in our conference.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where that game that they played at Mountain Home, where they just got run out of the gym, I think they approached that the right way, whereas they weren't, forget about it. That is not who we are. And we're not going to watch this film, and we're not going to learn anything from it. We are going to forget this ever happened, but file it away in a sense that you understand that you're not as good as you think you are. You can't just show up and be competitive. And that's kind of what you take from that. And those are the lessons that I taught when I was coaching too. I mean, there were games that, we would be on the bad end of something because of whatever reason. And there was nothing we were going to get out of that game, by going back and analyzing. So we just forgot it. On the flip side, there were things that, times that we beat up an inferior opponent. Forget about it. Okay. So it's about finding that balance. And so when they came into the second game, you could tell there was a little bit more pride in their step because they didn't want to get blown out again on their home floor. But Mountain Home is one of those teams too that they could beat anybody, but they could also keep anybody in the game. And the reason why is because they shoot the basketball. And what is going to be the thing that pushes Mountain Home deep into the state tournament is going to be the same thing that's going to get them 2 and done in the state tournament. And that is perimeter shooting, because that is what they do. And you better know how to defend the perimeter. You better know how to work through those screens at the 3-point line. And you better rebound the basketball, because I think one of the things in this particular game that Jerome did well was they defended the perimeter. And then they did a pretty decent job on the glass. And when you are a shooting team and you rely from the perimeter, if you know that your teammates are going to rebound the basketball and you're going to get a second opportunity, that does wonders for your shooting confidence. But if you know that every time you shoot that ball, this is probably a one and done, that puts a little bit more pressure on you. So the teams like Mountain Home, you've got to be able to understand how to beat them because they're really, really good. Well, this particular game, Mountain Home was a little cold from the perimeter. They weren't controlling the glass. And, Jerome got up by 10. And they were up by 10 in the third quarter. And then all of a sudden, a perimeter shot falls. And it's almost like you take the lid off. And then it was just bedlam down the finish. But it was a really, really good high school basketball game.
Yeah, we'll talk about the finish. Let's look at this from the Mountain Home side of it. I read the recap in the Times down there in Twin Falls after the game, and Coach Brent Keener, he basically said, "Hey, we know what kind of environment we're walking into in Jerome, and that definitely played a factor. That crowd was amplified, and it knocked us off our game a little bit. But Mountain Home, like good teams do, find a way to win. And it doesn't matter if you win by 40 or if you win by 1 in overtime. A win is a win, and they have bankrolled a lot of wins this year. They are so good on the perimeter, like you said. Lexi Longhurst, the sophomore point guard, fantastic. She was all conference as a freshman last year, I believe. They've got Julie Dinez, who can play really well. And then they got this transfer from Rimrock, which is, I don't know, how far is that from Mountain Home? They're kind of like within an hour of each other, probably.
It's somewhere in there, I think.
Yeah, so Rimrock is kind of down towards the Nevada border, south of the Boise area. And Chloe Borgen, all-conference player as a sophomore last year for Rimrock, she moves to Mountain Home, and she has fit seamlessly into this lineup, and I think is giving them just another piece to level up, as it were, from last year's team to this year's squad.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Borgen even played this game because she would hurt her ankle against Canyon Ridge, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow!
But you look at this roster, and it really does begin with Lexi Longhurst, and the reason why is because she can handle the basketball. And when you've got a point guard that can control the floor, they don't necessarily have to be the scorer. It helps that they would score. But if you have somebody that can just control an offense and handle a basketball, know that they're going to break pressure because of off the dribble, right? You have that, then everybody else can settle into a role. And as for a coach, man, you're not coaching every dribble. And when you have a team that just doesn't have any ball handlers, you are coaching every single dribble, every single pass, because you just don't have that confidence in anybody to do it. Lexi is amazing. She can handle the basketball. She struggled offensively, but she still got her team in the offensive sets. She still was able to handle pressure. But Mountain Home's got so many weapons that could beat you. Julie Donez hit a couple of big shots. Anaya Garza hit a couple of big shots, and I think even Maddie Cotton came in and hit a shot. Lexi got one. Ava got one. Jenna Gisaro got one. And next thing you know, you're looking at this team going, who do I stop? Because if they all can get going, they're all capable of hitting shots. That's what makes this team scary. But like
Yeah.
I said, if they get cold, that makes them very beatable. So I love this Mountain Home team. Obviously I love my team, but Brent Keener's a good friend of mine. We typically go out to dinner every time he comes to town and talk a little shop and whatnot. But, I'm excited for both of these two teams to battle it again, hopefully in the district tournament. Now our seeding is done. We have the tournament completely seeded, and Mountain Home is the number 1 seed. Jerome is number 2. Burley is 3. And then you got 4 and 5, Twin and Minico. And so Twin and Minico are going to play in a loser out game. The winner of that game will go to Mountain Home. Meanwhile, Burley's going to Jerome.
Is that a double elimination once you get to the final 4 teams there?
Yeah. So let me see if I can find it, but anyway. Yeah. So it's going to get started here pretty quick, and I need to send you those brackets.
Yes.
So you have them for our website. But anyway, it's going to be a good tournament because outside of outside of Mountain Home and Jerome, you got a team in there that could spoil in Burley. Burley's not too shabby. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. What happens.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yes, as a reminder, we have put all of the girls' basketball district brackets up on our site, IdahoSports.com. A lot of them are empty right now, there's still regular season games that are happening in some leagues, but they all are on the site at IdahoSports.com. You can get an idea of the format and everything like that. Here is our Moho fan in the chat, Scott, from YouTube. He says, hey, number 12, Anya Garza is my baby sister. And so true. The Mountain Home bench is loaded.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the shout out.
Yeah. Well, at least we know who is behind the name there or whatever. But Anaya Garza came out and hit a couple of really big shots. So, she played really, really well. So big bro, you should be proud.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, this Mountain Home team is going to be, like you said, at state. I'm just thinking ahead to teams that are going to be at state. Pocatello got a lot of size. Middleton's got some height. If Lakeland gets there, Lakeland's got a 6'3" center that they So you're right. Mountain Home, it's pretty clear their formula is going to be, can you stop our guards? And we'll take our chances. It's a good group to take your chances with. So
yeah, it is. It goes against all conventional thought when it comes to building a state championship team because, defense travels and perimeter shooting doesn't typically. Post play travels, but Mountain Home somehow gets it done unconventionally because those things are not supposed to travel as easily. I mean, think about it. You're going every game at state is a road game, and somehow you make it to the Idaho Center, and you haven't played there before. That's a trip. So shots closer to the basket tend to be better, But that's why you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I like this Mountain Home team, but I do want to give a shout out to our Jerome girls too because they just battle. They battle. They can be gritty. They can get a big rebound. They've got a really good freshman in Gerard that is Sawyer Gerard, who is going to be a name to remember. But if they dial it in and do the little things, they can beat anybody. And, they beat Timberline in our Christmas tournament and they got after it. But sometimes they just fall asleep and they just don't do the little things and get lazy, just like all teams do. But if they can dial that in, man, they could really do some damage.
Yeah, just looking at the standings, I'm not saying this is how it's going to happen, but if the second place team from District 4 played the second place team from District 3 in a playing game to go to state, Scott, the matchup would be Jerome and Bishop Kelly.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah, that's we'll see what happens there because we played them early on and we weren't healthy at that. No excuses, but we had, I think, two of our starters out. Our third starter, we never got back. So different team, both of them. We'll see what happens. If that happens to be the case, we'll see.
Oh, and you know what? And I misspoke. Really, you guys are playing the third place team from District 3. Sorry, I misspoke there. That would be Emmett right now. So that's.
Oh, okay. See, yeah. I'm trusting you because you're looking at it, and I'm not.
Yes. Yeah. Boy, Treasure Valley 2.5 bids to state. State of Ada, am I right?
Right, state of Ada. Golly.
Okay. Well,
yeah. This should just everybody in the Boise Valley gets to go, and then they invite a couple others, and that's it.
Yeah, that 4A field or old 4A 5A, that 5A field is going to be loaded. Pocatello, Middleton, Skyline with the best player in the state, Shea Shippen. Blackfoot, if they get there, well coached, they've got size, they're dangerous. This is going to be a fun tournament, Scott.
Yeah,
whoever gets to broadcast that's a lucky son of a gun.
I know, right? Who in the world gets to do that? Man, he is so lucky. I'm looking forward to that, though. I really am. I get to call the 5A state tournament, and all those teams you just mentioned are really, really good. I mean, there are some good teams here.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Before we get to state, though, we've got to get through districts, Scott. So on next week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast, oh, yeah, it's everybody's favorite time. We'll dust off the brackets. We'll show them. And we'll kind of update everybody on where we're at in the girls' basketball lexicon. By this time next week, maybe some teams will have already clinched spots to state. We may have some district championship results to talk about potentially. We'll see how it all shakes out, but that's kind of what I'm thinking for next week. Kind of look at the brackets, see what's going on, give the people an update.
Yeah, things are going to start to take shape here like they already have. So that'll be some good stuff to talk about, some good matchups coming. What teams are hot down the stretch, what teams can play spoiler. Those conversations are always fun.
Yep. All right. Well, Scott, enjoy the rest of your Friday night / weekend. We appreciate you squeezing us in on a Friday evening.
Geez, I'm headed to a basketball game, if you could believe it or not. Our boys are playing, and I got a message that the antenna.
Uh-oh. We lost Scott. We'll never know what happened with that end. I think he was going to say antenna, but well, on that note, with Scott Burton frozen in perpetuity, my name is Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everybody. And we'll see you back here next Friday, 3:30 for another edition on IdahoSports.com.